Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Eric Spivey of Vestavia Hills Baptist Church. As all of you may or may not know, we are going through a season of our church called Reach. We are studying the book of Acts, and we're reading through the book of Acts, and I'm preaching through the book of Acts, and we're thinking about what does it mean to try and do new things for God when God begins to push us and pull us to things that are new in our lives. We find ourselves reaching in areas that we never quite knew that's where we might show up. And so I'm today talking with my friend Brandon Bates. Brandon grew up at Vestavia Hills Baptist Church. And I wanted you all to hear a little bit of his story about how God has been working his life to help him to reach out in some different kinds of ways in his life over the past year or so. Where has God been pushing or pulling you in your life towards something new?
It's kind of crazy to think about where God could pull you to reach out new in a church that you've been a part of for almost 40 years. But it's funny how life sort of works out, plays out, and I think a lot of people know last year, 2023, was a challenging year for our family specifically. We had quite a journey last year, and we had so many people reach out to us over the last 12 months and be there in many ways. And it's great to know that you've got that community of faith that's there. Last year, not just those that reached out to us, but and I know Dad's story, a lot of people understand what we went through. So last February, he suffered a brain aneurysm, and it was pretty scary time for us as a family, and obviously for a lot of people that knew Dad. We went through a lot, and people, you're going down a path and a journey that you've never been down before. You don't have answers for what's going on, and even some of the doctors that you're interacting with didn't have full answers. And when you go through something like that, it causes you to dig a little deeper into your faith, probably dig a little deeper into your relationships. And we were so fortunate to be surrounded by so many people within our church family, our community, and have folks reaching out to us. And it helped us. We were lost in a lot of ways, and just little simple things like where do you park when you go down to UAB for the first time. And people came to us and bought parking passes and all these things that just those little pieces here and there that kind of help you get through those situations. And fast forward through some of that, we kind of got through things. Easter got a little bit better. We were able to celebrate some things around that time, and then as the summer started to play out, dad's kind of on his path to recovery, and you're thinking, hey, life's getting back to normal. We're feeling good. And I'm driving into work about a week ago. Yeah, a week ago last week. And I
Last
get a
year.
phone call. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So same, still 2023. And I get a phone call from a close friend of ours and see the number ringing through on my phone. I'm driving in. I'm thinking, maybe I'll just call Cindy back. And something told me, hey, answer. And it was her calling, and they were lost.
Hmm.
They were in Mississippi with their daughter, who had just finished her senior year at Mississippi State, and she had suffered a seizure and was in the hospital and on life support, just not doing well. And I think a lot of people know that the industry I work in, we specialize in air medical transports, and Cindy used to work for us as our chief flight nurse. And so I knew for her to be calling me, something wasn't right. And you could hear in her voice just kind of that panic and that lostness of, this is my daughter and I'm not sure what to do. And, kind of fast forward through the day of me dealing with that in my profession, and working around solutions to get her home. But where it kind of played out, and I know you and I've talked a little bit about this, I felt almost this obligation, in a lot of ways to reach out to them and do more than just help get Kylie from Starkville, Mississippi back to Birmingham, Alabama to UAB. And I do that a lot. I do that every day with patients and interact with them. But there was something different about that situation, and knowing what they were going through as a family on the heels of what we had just gone through. And you feel God pulling on you to say, you've got to do something here. And spoke with my president that day. We were going through all kinds of operational logistical challenges. Where do we get her? Can we pull some strings and get her in at UAB? If so, where do we go? Is she stable enough? And all of that came together in a matter of 4 or 5 hours of scrambling around. And in the meantime, I'm texting with her and her husband, and what we're working on this. What do you guys need? What's going on? And Scott called me and said, is it possible for you to come over with the plane? And I was like, maybe, right? Never been on. I've been in this industry for 19 years and never gone on an actual transport like that before. And I said, let me check and see. And he said, I really need you to, if you can, because they have a younger son, Carson, who was going into his junior year at Auburn. And he was really worried about him. And he was worried about, he was going to be driving home. They were going to be flying back on the plane with their daughter, and just wasn't sure about that. And, I wrestled with it a little bit, because I'm like, I don't know that I want to be in that situation, right? There was probably a little bit of trauma still hanging over from what I had already experienced, the last couple of months with Dad, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to have to wear all of that. And as selfish as that sounds, I think for people who have gone through situations like that, whether it's a battle with cancer or something else, it kind of it does it wears you down emotionally, physically. And when you're faced with it again, there's a little bit of trauma, I think, that still exists from that. And so I was probably thinking of every way I could possibly get out of doing that day. We were in the middle of our leadership summit at the office, and I had all my team in town, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel bad. I'm going to leave these people here, and we've got all this work to do. And I just felt, though, this pulling, this tugging of, is that really the right thing to do? Right. Work's going to be here. Your team's going to be here. But I kept going back to just how they sounded and how worn out both he and his wife were in that moment. And I called him back and I said, hey, look, I'm gonna get on the plane. I'll come over, we'll make sure everything's good. And, if Carson's up to it, I'll ride home with him. If he's not, I'm not going to force it, because I know what that feels like. And so, again, you kind of fast forward through, there's a lot going on, and we get over there, and it's a couple of hours of just getting her prepped and ready to go. And walking in that room, and for both of them to just walk up and kind of fall into your arms, you felt like, okay, you did the right thing.
Mm.
God has probably put you here for a reason, and there's no describing that, right? I think of that affirmation of, you took sort of a leap of faith, and as hard as it was to walk in to a hospital for the first time in 4 or 5 months, after having spent the better part of 6 weeks in and out of one, there was a lot of emotions there,
Mm-hmm.
and I think for for me personally, there was some healing that took place as a
Mm.
result of it as well,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have to worry about my family in that moment. I didn't have to worry about my mom and my brother and my daughter and what was going to happen with this outcome. It was more, I'm just here to support this family and my friends, and to be there for them, and if anything, comfort them in some way. And yeah, it was it, you talk about reaching out, and I think it's easy sometimes to reach out with no matter what you do, whether it's a text or a phone call or getting on a plane and going to Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
I think those moments matter, and it's really easy for us to sit back and say, I can come up with a reason why I don't send that message, or I don't send that card, or I don't make that phone call. We're all busy every day with our own lives and things that we have going on, but you don't know how much that can impact someone else. And I think that's the biggest thing I took away was, after all of the dust settled, we Carson and I make the ride back. We had a lot of great conversation. I mean, he was picking my brain about all the things, and to have that experience that we had gone through, to be able to feel like you could actually speak to what he was asking.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas had we not gone through what we went through 4 months before that, I would have had no knowledge, no base to go off of, right? And
Yeah.
to be able to
So,
go through that.
so I mean, if I could just sort of kind of see if I can find some of those little nuggets of truth, I think that are all in there that might help us all, kind of the general pieces that help us to think about this idea of reach was, one, as I hear, part of reaching is part of God doing something new is based on our own experiences. So part of the new thing that came out was like, I've experienced this and God can use this. So part of that is the building off of a really tough experience for your family, but God being able to use that in a way that helps someone else. And then I also heard, as you were talking about, this idea of that when a new opportunity is brought up to you, you have this you one is you were listening to the Spirit saying, this is something, there's something else going on here, and am I going to be willing to step out and try something? And you spoke about how it it was all brand new. You'd never rode the plane over there. You'd never had someone sort of ask you to come. You're sort of concerned about, am I stepping into something that they don't want me to be in? But you felt something nudging you. And I think often see the Spirit of God nudges us to try some of these new things, and you're willing to step into something that felt uncomfortable. And oftentimes whenever we try something new, it's uncomfortable. And then I heard that, that trying something new offered healing for you. Why you spoke about the trauma of it. And I think that's definitely a real thing, of being back in these spaces where we've had such scary moments, but also the process of reaching out to help someone else offered you some of your own healing, to see how God was using that experience in you to help this family and help this young man as y'all are driving back across the southeast to get back there and to answer those kind of questions. And you know, um, trying new things isn't necessarily these big things as far as having to try to create something new, but it's new things for us. And I think those things you talked about there of the nudging of the spirit, the uncomfortableness of it, but then seeing how God can use it can relate to all of us who are trying something new. We're running out of time, Brandon. Is there anything else you want to add to us before we go?
I just think, when you talk about those sort of three takeaway nuggets, I think the listening is probably the hardest part. And I know you've preached on this. It hits home for me because I think it's easy for me to go out and take action and be involved and all. It's harder to sit back and listen to see what's God calling for you to do, right? And to find that time, sometimes it has to be forced, right? Sometimes it's, hey, you're just stuck in this spot and there's absolutely nothing else that you can do but listen to God. But I think that's probably my takeaway from all of that is that if we do listen and listen with intent, not listen for what we want to hear, because if I had listened to what I wanted to hear, I'd have probably made some different decisions. But when you go into it and say, what is God calling me to do here, and what is He saying? I think that's when doors open up that you never thought would, and you can have profound impact on others, and they can have a profound impact on you. And I think that's the reward, if you will, at the end of all of it. So I
That's a
just
good word.
appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about that and share a little bit of that story. Hopefully it resonates with others, and just want to thank all of those that reached out to us. I think that I know on behalf of our whole family that meant a lot. We're happy to be in the spot we're in, and happy to be able to share some of that with our church.